Let's go. Time to grind, get inside your mind. Yeah, we working overtime. That's the only way to climb. We gon' make it in our prime. Signing on the dotted line, cashing checks left and right. That's the way I'm living life. I feel alive when I got a goal in sight. Chip away, I gotta fight. Ain't nobody else in sight. Man, I think I see the light. Yeah, that shit is so bright. Follow me, I got the guide. See you on the other side, son. Ain't nobody know what I've been through.
What is going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC Austin main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday, December 2nd, 2023. Main event, Beneil Dariush taking on Arman Tsarukyan. Co-main event, Jalin Turner taking on Bobby Green in a short notice bout. So overall, I think on the main card, it's looking pretty decent for a fight night. We'll see how it plays out. Co-main event, having it be short notice, I'm hoping it's a banger, but obviously you never know when it's that short notice. The main event, I think, is pretty good. You have someone that's a veteran in Beneil Dariush take on someone that, I mean, I guess at this point he's had a good amount of fights inside the UFC, but still, Tsarukyan kind of still on the up and coming younger fighter, and we'll see how that one plays out. Excited for that, but like we always do, try to close out the year, get some good picks in, and hopefully we can do that. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in to the first fight. In the first fight on the main card, we have Punahele Soriano 9-3 taking on Dustin Stoltzfus 14-5 in a middleweight bout. So I think this one's pretty straightforward. I really think Soriano's going to go out there on the feet, be aggressive, land those big hooks, or at least attempt to come forward, right? He's going to go right after him and just try to pretty much take him out. Now, his striking isn't the best, but he kind of relies on the power that he has, the knockout power, the aggression to kind of just he just needs to land like one or two shots on someone's chin and it's all over. Whereas someone like Dustin Stoltzfus, you know, it's weird because he, on Dana White Contender Series, he was able to take out Joe Pyfer. Obviously, I could never see that happening again because then he lost 3 fights in a row, won one fight against Dwight Grant, and not really like one of the best fights in the world. Loses to Abus Magomedov, and now he's fighting Soriano. So Stoltzfus, I mean, he's probably going to try to go in for a takedown, right? And I think the idea for him is if he can survive Soriano's aggression and then just get Soriano to a point where he was kind of tired, like in his last fight against Kopylov, he can start taking him down maybe. But I do think Soriano is going to be able to defend a takedown and then just obviously land a shot, right? I don't think Stoltzfus is going to be the same as Roman Kopylov. I'm just not seeing that happening. So yeah, I mean, if Soriano for a reason doesn't finish him in the first round and then just starts to gas out horribly, I mean, maybe he's getting taken down and controlled against the fence. But for me, you know, I got to go with Punahele Soriano to defeat Dustin Stoltzfus by round 1, KO TKO. In the second fight on the main card, we have Guida 38-20 taking on Joaquim Silva 12-5 in a lightweight bout. So this is interesting because I think, you know, Guida's been in the game forever, right? Obviously been in the game since 2006, back in Strikeforce days, and then to his most, he's been on the win-loss. So maybe he's coming up with a win, but he's taking on a guy in Joaquim Silva who it's just very dangerous on the feet. At the end of the day, he does have submission skills. I mean, he hasn't submitted anyone inside of the UFC, but you never know, right? At the end of the day, he could always pull off something. But for Silva, I think the biggest thing for me is just on the feet. He's always going to have an opportunity to just annihilate you, right? So like, let's say Guida, he's going in, he's doing his thing, throwing his little hooks, darting in and out, always has that cardio, but then he goes in for the takedown and eats a flying knee, right? Then it's all over. So it's just one of those things where Guida could be winning the fight. You know, he's grinding him out 2 rounds. We get to the 3rd round. Joaquim Silva goes in there. Boom, it's all over, right? And Silva was on his way to losing a pretty dominant decision as far as like getting dominated by the wrestling. Now, Silva, when he fought Tsarukyan, like he did rock him in that fight, right? He got outstruck, he got taken down 4 times, but still, like, it was a tough fight. Like, it wasn't like Tsarukyan just ran him over. And granted, he got finished in the 3rd round. So Silva, like I said, he's always dangerous. You're really gonna have to outwork him, just outstrike him, like Tsarukyan was able to. I mean, that flying knee that he landed against Jesse Ronson, I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? It just comes out of nowhere. He lost to Ricky Glenn. He loses to Nasrat Haqparast. But in my opinion, Silva, when he took on those two guys, I don't want to say they're better strikers because it's not, I don't think Ricky Glenn's like the best guy. But Haqparast, I mean, he's pretty decent. Like, obviously, when they face top level competition, they're not doing so well. But against lower level, like, they definitely pick guys apart. So, to me, you really have to mix in grappling, you have to mix in your striking, or you have to be able to get them out of there and just, obviously land the more technical punches and not just rely on your big power. Where Joaquim Silva, he's going in there, he's trying to flash KO you at any moment in the fight. And, not that he's landing any submissions inside the UFC, but I think that is there, obviously. If Guida gets a little bit crazy, goes in for the takedown, leaves his neck exposed, Silva could obviously pull off a guillotine or something like that. And yeah, I think Silva is obviously going to throw less, but when he does land, Guida's got to be very careful. Now, for Guida, like I said, cardio machine, he's always coming forward, big hooks in close. It can get a little bit wild. He's known for that crazy style. He's running around the ring doing push-ups after the fight's over. I think for Guida, he's just got to play it safe. Get him to the floor, control him, do as much as ground and pound you can. There's no reason for him to be trading back and forth with Silva unless he's just drastically better in the striking department than Silva is, and we see that early on. Then maybe Guida can do that, but I just think on the feet, he's got to just get this fight to the ground. Even controlling up against the fence, slowing the fight down, grinding him out, like, he's got to make him tired, because Guida's not going to get tired. But at the same time, Guida's going to have to just do a lot more work, where, like I said, it could be the third round, Silva's been taken down 4 times, and then Guida gets KO'd. So yeah, I don't know. To me, it's like Guida's gonna put on a classic performance, take him down, grind him out, and that's it, and it's boring, whatever. I just feel like that's not gonna happen. And so I feel like second, third round, Silva's gonna be able to land something. And like I said, it's only gonna take 1 or 2 wobbles followed by a barrage of strikes that Silva's gonna need to just finish him. So I'm actually gonna have to go with Joaquim Silva. I just think just being that dangerous, and like, Clay Guida is not Arman Tsarukyan, right? I think if Tsarukyan fought Clay Guida, he'd probably annihilate him. So I'm gonna go Joaquim Silva to defeat Clay Guida. I'll take him to win by round 2, KO TKO. In the third fight on the main card, we have Sean Brady, 15-1, taking on Kelvin Gastelum, 18-8, in a welterweight bout. So my only concern here is going to be that how Kelvin Gastelum looks at 170. I'm a little bit concerned if his weight cut is a little bit tough. Obviously, coming off of fighting at 185 and then moving down for him, I'm a little bit concerned. All that fluctuation in weight, it just is a little bit sketchy. But assuming that he's not struggling out there to make weight and all that stuff, Sean Brady, I mean, we kind of know what he's probably going to try to do. I think he's probably going to try to go for those takedowns, right? I don't know if Gastelum's going to be able to compete with that offensively. Like, I don't know if Gastelum early on is going to be able to land any takedowns. I think he'll probably have to be the one defending the takedowns. And then for Sean Brady, I think getting the takedowns, looking for a submission, looking for some sort of control on top is probably what he's going to do. With that being said, though, I think thinking that he's going to just run through him, Gastelum's tough, man. Like, he's definitely one of these guys where you think, he's taking some damage and all that. His hand, he doesn't look like he's going to be a fast fighter, but I think with his cardio, he's got good kicks. He has that ability to kind of survive and make a fight really just gritty and start going back and forth. And he has a good chin. Gastelum's hand speed too, man. I think in his last fight against Chris Curtis early on in that fight, his hand speed looked good. He's stringing together some good combinations. And Chris Curtis, man, he's a good fighter. So I really liked what we saw. Now, granted, I think that was at 185. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this one plays out. I'm a little bit concerned about that weight cut and all that. But if he can defend some takedowns here, pressure Sean Brady, get in his face, start landing some combinations, catching him off guard, just because I think his speed is going to be more impressive than Sean Brady is taking in. I think Gastelum can make this one a little bit ugly, and then when it starts to get ugly and Brady starts to get a little bit tired, Gastelum will be able to go after him. And I think it's a pretty back and forth fight, and it could go either way. But I do think we're gonna see Gastelum be able to pull it off if he presses forward, if he's landing those combinations, getting in Sean Brady's face, making him back up, I think we're going to see Gastelum be able to pull off a decision. Now, if Gastelum just immediately gets taken down and just dominated, I mean, then that's unfortunate. But I do think he'll be able to make it a war. And I feel like if it gets to that point, Brady is going to have a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to go with Kelvin Gastelum to defeat Sean Brady. I'll take him to win by a close decision. And so we move on into the fourth fight on the main card. We have Rob Font, 20-7, taking on Davison Figueiredo, 21-3-1 in a bantamweight bout. Rob Font is coming off of a loss against Corey Sandhagen via a decision in a fight where Corey Sandhagen was able to land 7 takedowns. And so that's the other concern in this fight, right? Now, obviously, Figueiredo is moving up to bantamweight, so he won't have to cut as much weight, but I think he is still going to be a little bit undersized, so we'll see how that one plays out. Rob Font can be taken down. So I think right off the bat, you got to assume that Figueiredo is going to try to get him on the floor. I don't think it's a good idea to start trading back and forth with Rob Font, especially in close. Just really good boxing from Rob Font, good head movement, and he has the ability to survive. So even if you're hurting him, he has the ability to stay in the fight somehow, and if anything, lose via decision. We saw that against Marlon Vera. I mean, Vera was just annihilating him. Now, even in that fight, though, Rob Font landed 271 significant strikes to Vera's 159. But Vera was landing the far more harder shots. So Rob Font can definitely put up some good volume. It's just that the other fighters are hitting harder, right? Against Aldo, too. He put up more volume than he did, but he ate more shots and got knocked down twice by Aldo. Lost the decision. But he's very tough, right? Very tough guy. All 3 of his past losses are all by decision against the very best in the division. So I don't think Rob Font's going to just get annihilated here unless maybe he gets submitted. But I mean, again, I don't really see that happening. He hasn't lost via submission since he lost to Pedro Munoz in October 28th of 2017 via some guillotine in the first round. So I don't really see that happening here. I think Figueiredo, he's going to have to buckle in, right? He's going to have to get into this one, and he's going to have to hope that not having to cut that weight and getting some grappling going, I think he can win this fight, right? Maybe he lands some good shots on the feet, goes after the lead leg of Rob Font, slows him down a little bit, but the trading in close just not a good idea. Get that grappling going, see what you can control him on the floor, mix in some good kicks and all that. Now, for Figueiredo, I think the biggest thing here is just that he's not going to be fighting the same guy for the 5th time, right? He's going to be fighting a new fighter. So I think that's kind of motivating, right? It's like I get to actually train for a new fighter in a new division. I don't have to cut as much weight. So it's very interesting. I think it's a good... We'll really get to see where Figueiredo is in this one. Now, Rob Font, like I said, is very tough. Nasty fighter. Like, he can even mix in his own grappling. Like, I think that could be a little bit surprising too, right? So he might be able to defend some takedowns in this one if Figueiredo goes for it. I think the best case scenario for Rob Font is that he's able to kind of put up that volume and get Figueiredo to kind of just trade in close with him and just go from there. Like, obviously with Rob Font, I don't think he's going to be hitting, because we're not going to see Figueiredo go in there like Adrian Yanez did, right? Adrian Yanez just wanted to start brawling in close. I think he made that mistake to where Rob Font's like, okay, that's perfect, right? You're not fighting me technical. You just want to trade back and forth. And at that point, it's just flip a coin. Whoever gets hit the hardest is going to go out. So that was a great win for Rob Font. But when you fight these other guys like Vera, Aldo, Sandhagen, each of them is going to utilize, like Aldo and Vera utilize just far more technical and hard-hitting striking, whereas Sandhagen utilized the grappling. Like, Figueiredo is going to utilize probably the grappling and then taking out the legs of Font so that he's plotting around and just struggling to get his hands on Figueiredo, right? So I think Figueiredo, if he can control him on the floor, kind of do what Sandhagen did, maybe do a little bit more damage on the feet, but for the most part, control him on the floor. I think we can see Davis and Figueiredo get a good decision here. And again, that's if he looks good at this. He doesn't look undersized, right? He's got to look good at this weight, not look significantly undersized or something like that. Like, we'll just have to see how this one plays out. But For me, I'm going to go Davison Figueiredo to win his bantamweight debut against Rob Font. I'll take him to win by decision. In the co-main event in the evening, we have Jalin Turner, 13-7, taking on Bobby Green, 31-14, 1-1 no contest in a lightweight bout. And this is a short notice fight. Initial fight was supposed to be Bobby Green versus Dan Hooker, and I was all over Dan Hooker in that one because I think Dan Hooker can just make things ugly. He can survive, and then he's just going to make it ugly, and I just thought Bobby Green was going to get caught. Now, when you have a fight like this, it's like Bobby Green has to be a little bit careful, right? He still has to be careful, but I do think Bobby Green could mix in some wrestling, and that's something that you might not think he's going to do. But against someone like Jalin Turner, we have to get in close, right? He's not going to be able to stand on the outside because Turner's going to have the length advantage in his legs too, right? So he's going to be kicking him. He's going to be fast early on. It's not a guy you want to trade back and forth with. So I'm a little bit concerned that Bobby Green goes in there, especially with his tactics where he's always have his hand downs, taunting, right? He's doing his thing. But we saw when he tried to go back and forth with Judober, he was actually winning that fight and then just got absolutely crushed because he's doing his thing, right? And he was kind of backed up against the fence. And that's the thing. If Jalin Turner is able to get Bobby Green backing up against the fence and then start exchanging with him, I'm not sure if Bobby Green's going to be the one that doesn't fall on the floor. Now, we saw Bobby Green in his last fight against an up-and-comer, more so a grappler, right? Grant Dawson did not have the striking at all. He's definitely more of a wrestler, a grindy wrestler, makes things ugly on the floor. But Bobby Green went right out there and traded with him and took him out, right? So he obviously has fast hands, but he needs to get in close. And, Green, he's going to do the taunting thing, but he's got to be careful, man, because you don't want to eat a fast head kick to the dome when you're taunting and all that, right? I think if Green can get in close, utilize good boxing, but also try to look for a takedown, he can slow this fight down, close off the distance, and then really start pulling away with the striking. Because I do think Green is underrated on the feet. I think he's a really nice boxer. We saw that in his fight against Rafael Fiziev. I mean, he didn't win that fight, but some people think that Green is chinny. I mean, I think that's a good fight where he was able to go toe-to-toe with a guy who's known for being gritty and stuff like that, and then pull off a fight where he actually landed more, still lost the decision, but he didn't get knocked out, right? Took it out Iaquinta, Nasrat Hakbaras, lost to Islam Makhachev on short notice. I mean, not a fight you want to be taking on short notice. He lost to Drew Dober. Again, more so in my opinion, him just getting careless and starting to go back and forth with his back on the fence and just wildly exchanging with Drew Dober. Not a smart idea. Against Jared Gordon, he lost. Well, it was a no contest, but in my opinion, I think he might have been on his way to winning that fight, even though it was a short amount of the fight. He just seemed a little bit faster in that one. And then he takes on Tony Ferguson. He gets an arm triangle submission, beats him up. I mean, that's just kind of what that is, right? Just beats him up, knocks out Grant Dawson. So, yeah, I mean, short notice fight. Got to be careful. Don't get too cocky on this one. Don't want to eat a head kick to the dome. But I think if Green can close the distance, utilize his boxing, mix in a takedown and see what he can do with it, I think he can pull off a good decision, because I do think Turner will fade if Green's putting the pressure on him and just tagging him left and right. So I'm gonna go Bobby Green to defeat Jalin Turner. I'm gonna win by a decision. So we move on into the main event of the evening. We have Beneil Dariush 22-5-1 taking on Arman Tsarukyan 20-3 in a lightweight bout. Now, this is a banger of a fight because you have Beneil Dariush, who's coming off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? 8 fights, and then he loses against Charles Oliveira in a fight where I think just Oliveira, just showed how his striking is underrated. I think Dariush is very powerful. We've seen KO via spinning back fist. We see him punch somebody. We see him submit people, right? We've seen him decision guys dominantly with the grappling. He actually won a pretty good fight against Gamrot. Gamrot was just not able to get those takedowns consistently and only landed 4 of 19. So Beneil Dariush can definitely hang with people on the floor. And that's my concern here, is that if Tsarukyan goes right off the bat trying to take him down, I just don't think that's the play. I think on the feet, he needs to test the striking, right? He needs to get in his face and start going back and forth with Dariush. And if he can do that and, kind of mix in things, but if he can pressure him and get him to exchange a little bit, pop, pop, pop. Now, Tsarukyan did get a little bit, I think, at moments in his last fight against Joaquim Silva. There's some moments where he did get wobbled in that fight. There's moments though you have to be a little bit careful because Dariush come flying right back with a left hand, and then it's all over. He wobbles him. So I think Tsarukyan needs to be a little bit careful because Dariush might load up on one single shot, boom, take him out. But if Tsarukyan's able to pop shot him, keep that pressure on him, am I gonna go in for a takedown? Mix in a lot of that kind of thing. I think he can kind of pull off a pretty good decision, or even get a finish in there. But as far as like Tsarukyan just tagging him down immediately and dominating him, I don't think that's gonna happen. Let alone, I don't think Tsarukyan's going to be able to take him down. Maybe not even 4 times, right? Like Gamrot did. I think he's gonna have to strike. He's just gonna have to strike. He's gonna have to reel Dariush in to get into those exchanges to where maybe he hurts him a little bit. But definitely keep the pressure, because if he's just shooting in for takedowns and takedowns and takedowns, like, he's gonna get tired, and then Dariush is gonna kind of do what he did against Gamrot, where he kind of just started picking him apart, right? He uses really nasty body kicks, really, really strong kicks. And Dariush, man, you don't want this guy pulling a guillotine on you. So Tsarukyan needs to be a little bit careful diving in for takedowns early on, and even initiating any of that. We've seen Dariush, maybe he goes for an ankle lock, maybe he goes for an arm bar, right? Got to be careful. Got to be careful with Dariush. Now, I think Dariush is going to be, like I said, I don't think he's getting taken down. I think this is going to be a tough fight for Tsarukyan, but a good fight for him to kind of learn from. The thing that I see that the difference is Gamrot couldn't find that success because he was just relying on getting those takedowns. He didn't really have anything on the feet. Where I think for Tsarukyan, he's got to just, okay, maybe the takedowns are there in the later rounds, but early on, how can you use the striking, darting in and out, pressuring him, just having the better. I think he's going to have the better technical striking, whereas Dariush can obviously generate maybe more power or be more damaging, but he's got to be able to land those shots, right? He's got to be able to land the left hand. He's got to be able to land those body kicks, land those leg kicks, whereas Tsarukyan, I think he's just going to be able to string together better combinations. And who's not to say that Tsarukyan hurts him? Right, I'm not saying that either, but I think Dariush is tough. Like, I don't think he won 8 fights for no reason, right? Like, I think he's a tough guy. And some of those are by submission, and some of those are by KO punches, spinning back fist, right? He can definitely start going back and forth. It's just I just don't think Tsarukyan is gonna dive in for takedowns over and over and over and over. He's got to mix it up. And if he can do that, I think he can win the fight. But yeah, man, I mean, a little scary just because Tsarukyan did get wobbled against Joaquim Silva. And Joaquim Silva really was just banking on landing that big shot, where Dariush, with his left hand, I mean, he could land that big shot too. So early on, you just got to be careful. And Tsarukyan cannot give up any bad grappling positions. So if the takedown isn't looking right, don't just dive in for it. It's just not going to work out for him. So for me, it's a close fight. It's an interesting one. You got a veteran, and then you kind of got, at this point, I guess you could say, kind of not a veteran, but like, I guess, an up and comer in Tsarukyan, and you have a veteran in Dariush. So it's interesting to see they cross paths. Who's going to come out on the other side? Both guys have fought similar guys. Lightweight division is going to be competitive, especially if Makhachev loses to Oliveira, although I really don't see that happening. I think Makhachev is going to be pretty dominant still, but who knows? Maybe Tsarukyan's able to get his rematch, his very first fight inside the UFC, but he's going to have to put on a really good performance against Dariush. Otherwise, if he's he only lands 3 out of 20 takedowns, like, I just don't think that's not going to be good for him. And the way Dariush just got annihilated by Joaquim Silva, not Joaquim, the way Dariush got annihilated by Charles Oliveira, man, it's hard. It's just hard for me to think that he's ever even going to get to fight Makhachev or whatever. So I'm going to go Arman Tsarukyan on this one. I'm going to take him to defeat Beneil Dariush. talking about win by a decision. So that'll do, guys, for my UFC Austin main card predictions for this event coming up this Saturday, final month of the year, December, right? Then we go into 2024. Who knows what's going to happen there? I hope everyone had a good year. You know, I hope everyone's enjoying. I think we got one more pay-per-view, right? So we got the next one. We got Song versus Gutierrez, and then we have Edwards versus Covington, UFC 296. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be a banger, and then that one closes it out. So see how this one plays out. But leave your comments down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, let me know who you think is going to win in the main event, and I'll see you guys in the next video.